Alright guys, I wanted to come at you today with a little video on the topic of 1911s, and especially talking about like the kind of groupthink that surrounds them for the most part. Because it's been on my mind lately, and I just kind of wanted to talk about it. So, but we'll start off first with what I'm drinking, and what we have here is Weihenstephaner Vitus. I don't know if I pronounced any of that correctly. It's something long, it's something German. Either way, it tastes good. So that's what I have there, and it's 7.7%. That's pretty strong stuff for a beer. So on the topic of 1911s, right? People usually have this kind of there's a popular opinion on the internet that 1911s were for fuds. They're not very reliable. My two world wars. Can I get a 45 with a side of jam, please? That whole it's basically urban legend lore, established lore at this point, on how unreliable and how sucky a 1911 is. And I kind of wanted to put a little bit of that to rest, given my extensive experience with 1911s. So a little bit of history about me. I grew up shooting 1911s. Actually, it was my first pistol that I ever shot when I was probably like 10 or 11, and I actually still have that gun to this day. I have it right here. This is a Colt 1911 Series 80 Mark IV that used to be my dad's carry gun way back in the day before they made really small subcompact 1911s. He actually carried this. And this pistol is particularly special because at the time my dad knew a master armorer that had retired from the armory, and he had worked on 1911s extensively, so he got a lot of custom work done on this one. So this one is really super nice, very tuned. I mean, it is probably one of the nicest handguns I have in my collection, and it holds a special place in my heart too, because this is the gun I grew up shooting. So I haven't even, these grips on here have been on here since before I was born. So they're just awesome. So I've had a guy offer me $2,000 cash in person. He showed it to me for this gun at the range, and I said, "Oh man, I can't do it. It's got too much history, you know." So this is definitely an example of a very high-end tuned custom 1911. Right now, we're going to move on to one of the ones that I had just picked up very recently. This is a Rock Island Armory 1911. Series 70 GI model. So it's super basic, no frills. It has a pinned staked front sight here. It's got just a dovetail GI style sight. Super basic. No front slide serrations. No huge beaver tail back here. No curved mainspring housing. All the basic stuff, right? I did replace the grips though. Super basic 1911. I paid like $450 for this thing. And common perception and lore on the internet would tell you that if let's say you're asking for an opinion for one of these things, right? The common lore would be, one, stop being poor. Two, it's going to jam. Basically, it's going to jam on its way to the range while it's just sitting in your bag. It's going to jam every other shot. It's not going to be accurate. The trigger is going to be terrible. It's just not going to work for you, right? Well, if you know what you're doing and you maintain and take care of these things, they work. Surprisingly enough, right? A design that's over 100 years old, works, and it has been working for many decades, for a lot of people. And when I took this one out to the range today, actually, I put about 150 rounds through it, and I had absolutely zero malfunctions. No failures to feed, no failure to extract, no jams, nothing. The only jams I ever got with it was because I was using this huge Stendo mag. Now this is probably a Pro mag, but it's not labeled anywhere. Wait, no, actually it is. It's labeled Pro mag right there on the bottom. I don't know if you can see that. So Pro mag is known for making very low quality magazines, and usually big ones like this, because the common thing is the bigger your magazine gets, the more unreliable it gets. And that was definitely the case here. So I only tried the Stendo once, and it's got 15 rounds. I mean, just look at that. That's silly, right? I put 15 rounds in this thing because that's all it could hold, and it would not feed the first 5 rounds, and then it would jam on the 6th round, and then everything after that would work just fine. So I don't blame the gun at all, because my other 1911, the Colt, will do the same exact thing with this magazine. So it's the magazine, not the gun. Which brings up a good point, actually, because one thing with 1911s that not a lot of other guns have nowadays is how fickle they are with magazines. These things are extremely fickle when it comes to magazines. You know, even high quality magazine manufacturers like OG original Colt magazines, Metgar magazines, Kimber magazines, Wilson Combats, whatever, man. They'll work in one gun, but they won't work in another. And that was definitely the case with this versus the other 1911 I have, the Colt. You know, some mags just will work, some won't. It's just the name of the game. So, yeah, the fact that this went through, you know, 150 rounds with absolutely no issues except for the stendo, it goes against the common perceived unreliableness of a 1911. So my point is, you know, cheap or expensive 1911s, they just work, at least for me anyways. I don't really know what everyone else is talking about. Oh, my 1911 jams every other shot, blah, blah, blah. Well, usually my questions start with, well, 1, what kind of ammo are you using? 2, what magazines do you have? 3, have you properly cleaned, lubricated, maintained the weapon? Usually in one of those 3 questions, it'll be something along the lines of, I'm using reloads. Not always a great idea. 2, I'm using the magazine that came with the gun. Not really a good idea, especially with these cheaper ones. The magazines really aren't that great. You know, try different mags. And then 3, usually most people, believe it or not, when they buy a new gun, they don't even take it apart to clean and maintain it, to oil it. None of that. They don't lubricate it, nothing. And some people would make the argument, oh, well, you know, a gun should just work out of the box, right? Well, yes and no, because a lot of companies, when they package these things, they pack these things with factory grease. And if you didn't know, grease is not something you really want on a operating firearm. Now, you can use it to preserve it, sure, but if you're actually using it, you don't really want that stuff in the action, because it's really going to gum it up. Now, if you've ever fired like an old milsurp, like a Mosin that's had like a ton of cosmoline built in it, you'll know exactly what I mean. It just gums it up something fierce. So if you do your part and you maintain your weapon and do what you're supposed to do, what you know you should be doing, these work just fine, in my experience. Always have. Cheap or expensive, even the hyper expensive ones that I've shot, you know, I don't own any personally, but you know, the ones that I've shot at the range, and then all the way down to cheap ones like this, and even the ATIs, the cheaper ones than this, you know, the fit and finish is nowhere near the same as my Colt. Yeah, I didn't expect it to be, but they just work. So when you know, all this internet lore about, like, you know, they're terrible, right? My guess is it was supposed to be a joke on basically the older FUD culture of, you know, 1911 is the only thing I need. You know, I carry a cocked and lock. I carry a 45 because, you know, because they don't make a 46, but they do now. You know, all of that, I think, was making fun of them and how much I don't know what's the word. How much stock that these older folks have put into these 1911s and how great they were compared to the modern options we have now. But it's kind of turned into, there are people who actually believe that now, who actually believe that they are that unreliable, that they're that terrible, that they're not a good combat sidearm anymore. You know, and they've started to believe it, and there's now a groupthink going around, especially with the younger folks around my age, who basically look at the 1911 as something of a meme. It's not even worthy of your consideration. It's not a good sidearm. You should never consider one. Blah 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 blah. Right? I don't agree with that. I just don't. My experience has been really good with these things. I've shot them for years. You know, all ranges and everything. It's just, I don't know. They just work for me. Are they the easiest thing to shoot? No, absolutely not. You know, even though it is an all steel frame, or well, most of them are anyways. Let me rephrase that. All metal frame. all metal frame 1911, although there are some polymers out there as well. But in general, most are all metal frame. All right, 45 caliber. It's going to be a bit jumpier than a 9mm for sure. So it's not the easiest thing to shoot for some other people who are used to 9mm or lighter recoiling weapons. So, but given that, I will concede that, you know, this gun is more than 100 years old in the design that made it, right? So obviously there's been a lot of improvements from then to now, and one of those things is this USP Tactical H&K USP Tactical 45, right? In pretty much every single way, this gun is superior as a combat sidearm to a 1911. It just is. There are some people who would say, oh, well, it's a polymer frame, it's not as good, right? I guess, sure. I mean, USPs have been absolutely, you know, tortured and tested and beaten and all kinds of shit. You know, they just work, right? So given the choice, I would definitely carry this USP into combat over a 1911 any day. Now, that's not to say I would feel underarmed if I had just this compared to a USP, right? Human physiology has not changed since this either of the weapons were designed, so a 45 will still put a, you know, nice hole in somebody. I mean, you wouldn't want to be shot with a 45, would you? Yeah, didn't think so. So, what I really want to do is drive away from people the notion that 1911s are bad, that they're unreliable, that they're not good guns. I mean, they were the standard service sidearm of the U.S. military for God knows how long for a reason. Because it works and it puts people down, right? So the military would not have used the 1911 for as long as it did if it didn't work, period. So is it the greatest thing ever? No. Is it the most, you know, awesome sidearm you can ever get? No. But given what it is, for how old it is, for what it shoots, what its intended purpose is, it does just fine. It gets the job done. So I don't really, you know, put a lot of stock into people saying, oh, it's just a meme gun, it's terrible, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, have you owned these? Have you shot them? Have you shot them as much as I have? Have you shot them extensively? Have you tried all different ranges, brands, models, calibers even? You know, and then get back to me. So I guarantee you pretty much, you know, 99% of the time, if they do all the stuff that I've done, they wouldn't be saying that about these guns. At least not seriously anyways. So I still like to have my fun and you know, make fun of the old dude who open carries a 1911, but you know, I'm not saying I wouldn't either. That's just me. So yeah, I just wanted to quell some of the groupthink that goes around with 1911. So if you're looking for one, I would definitely say don't feel afraid to go and get one. In some cases, you get what you pay for. In a lot of cases, you don't. Especially with 1911, some of these prices for the 1911s are absolutely outrageous. Especially when it comes to Colt models, because Colt, as some people may or may not know, they basically went to shit after the 90s, or even during the 90s. So if you find a Colt that's been manufactured like after 1992 or 1993, you really don't want that one. You're probably going to be paying too much for what it is. Colt doesn't make those. Some other company makes them and Colt puts their name on it. So are you actually getting Colt quality with some of these newer production guns? No, not really, but you're paying for the Colt name, right? So to get like one of these, a stainless Series 80 model, today you're probably going to be paying anywhere from like $800 to $900 for, you know, for one like this, and then it won't be anywhere near as nice as this one is because this one has had work done on it, obviously. But honestly, you know, the new Colts, when it comes to what they're charging for what you're getting, it's just not worth the money. I would sooner get like a what is it, a Dan Wesson 1911. Those things are really, really nice. Yeah, there's so many manufacturers out there for 1911s. You have a lot of options when it comes to what you're going to get. Personally, if you're looking for a really basic no-frills 1911 like me, that looks kind of like, you know, the GI model they used back in the day, Rock Island's a good choice. You know, I had a lot of fun with it. You know, at the range, I put a human-sized target up, and I put a basically a fist-sized hole in it at 25 yards, offhand, no problem. So, you know, if I can do it, anyone else can too. These pistols will probably shoot better than most people can anyways. That's basically the golden rule with pistols, is they're always more accurate than the shooter is. So if you ever claim that, oh, my pistol's not accurate, either it's you or it's the ammo. Period. That's just how it is. So, yeah. To overview, 1911s are solid. They're good. They work. If you do your part, if you're not done with it, and you do what you're supposed to do, 1911s, just like this one here, will work for you just fine. Are there better, more modern options out there for what your specific purpose is? Sure, absolutely. You know, I brought that up with this USP. It's better in every way, pretty much. But, you know, there's a lot to be said for a 1911, a lot of credit that needs to be given. And, you know, there's nothing that quite really beats the classic look of one of these anyways, at least in my opinion. They're just classic, timeless, ageless, you know. St. Browning has definitely, you know, given us a really nice piece of hardware. So yeah, that's my take on 1911s, and hope you found it pretty informative. So yeah, go get yourself a 1911, go enjoy it, and don't let the internet, you know, people tell you that you can't have fun, because, you know, who are they, right? Y'all have a good one.